How are you, Wyatt?
Good. How are you, sir?
Doing good. Good to see you as always.
Good to see you.
Let's get rolling. First of all, give us a review on how the game went last Friday. Heard a little bit from Joe about the Northern Guilford Northwest game. Let's get it from you. Not a drop of rain out there last week, but again, how'd the game go? Give us your insight on that game last week.
The game was very entertaining in the first half. Northern won the coin toss and deferred and gave the Northwest offense the ball, which I thought was an interesting move because of how powerful the Northwest offense has been this year. To give them the ball at the beginning of the game is kind of, I guess you want a defensive stop, but feel like maybe you could get behind the 8 ball from the very beginning, and that's kind of ended up what happened. And Trey Turner ended up catching a touchdown pass on their first possession. But then on Northern's first play from scrimmage, Myron Frazier took the ball 78 yards back on a run. So
some big plays early in that game.
Right, there was big plays early, and then both teams ended up tying. Both teams ended up with 14 points at halftime.
It's got a 14-14 deadline. I guess, what was the mood like? What was the attitude around the stadium of the fans? They kind of in a state of shock, the Northwest fans, thinking, we've tried this before, it's going to kill us again, we can't win this game. What was the spirit like around there?
It was, at the beginning of the game, it was the whole stadium bleachers that the press box is on was shaking. I thought we were going to collapse because the kids were jumping up and down. The students were so pumped
into it,
and they were so hyped, and they thought, that this is going to be the year we're going to beat Northern. There's no questions asked. And then when Frazier took that first play from scrimmage back for 78 yards and scored, and took their lead away in one play, it kind of got really quiet.
Like you let the air out of the balloon.
Right, the balloon just deflated. But
when did Northwest finally seize control of this game or start to take control of the game? When did they finally work on that?
Well, they scored in the first quarter. Thomas Hennigan went down the near sideline, caught a pass, and got knocked out of bounds. And before he did, he fumbled the ball and gave up the ball. So that was also a kind of let some more air out of Northwest balloon. But in the second quarter, Kyle Finney ran 5 yards for their Northwest second touchdown, and so they go to halftime 14-14. The second play, after Northern gets the ball at halftime, Frazier breaks out and runs 70 yards for a touchdown. And I think Northwest kind of put their foot down after that, and it turned into the Thomas Hennigan, Jacob Leonard show, and those two. It was pretty much Thomas.
How many snaps, probably a rough estimation, how many snaps did Hennigan take, or mainly Leonard taking most of the snaps?
No, they had Hennigan play a lot more quarterback this week than they had the week before.
Snap and run?
Snap and run, and a few passes. I think I only had him with one pass attempt. But he was taking the ball, taking more snaps this week.
And I'm sure he was not under center. He had to be back in the gun, take the snap and fly left or right.
He was.
Get around that corner and go.
He was, and that's what they were doing.
Getting some pretty good blocks out there too, I guess.
Right, he was. They were running a play where they could reverse. They could reverse it, and you didn't
run right, cut back left.
Right, and they didn't really know. You never really knew who had the ball unless you saw the handoff or you saw the guy sneak up the middle. You had to pay close attention.
Now, did Leonard run any at all? The quarterback, no.
Not
much. Leonard.
He had 7 rushes for 42 yards.
That's not bad. 6 yards a carry.
That's pretty good.
His stuff up the middle, or his stuff outside too. Mainly.
outside. There wasn't very many people running up the middle except for Meyer and Frazier.
Yeah.
Both of those touchdowns.
Even Finney was going outside then.
Well, Finney did go up the middle on that touchdown.
Because I'm thinking Hennigan's got to get outside with his speed. He's got to push that edge out there as hard as he can get around that corner.
Right. But Frazier was the main one who was running up the middle, and he did. I mean, he pretty much carried that.
Early on in that game, by the kind of the nature of your text, I kind of got the feeling you felt like, gosh, there's a good chance Northern's going to win this game. Frazier's going crazy, so there's a possibility. You're getting the feel. Wyatt Smith's getting the feeling. I think Northern might just win this game again this year.
I really did. To see the way that Northern responded to Northwest scoring early, and then with Frazier going out and busting right up the middle and going 78 yards to score, I truly thought that this was going to be another upsetting year.
What was it like on the Northern side of things? Did they have a good crowd, and was the crowd into that game when they were competing and keeping it even, the Northern fans?
The Northern fans showed up really well. They were all wearing camouflage, and they showed up really well and supported them really well. The only thing that they didn't do was go crazy, really. I mean, when they scored, there was a couple of times that they scored, but when Northwest would score, it was like an eruption in the stadium. Those fans going nuts. Maybe it's because we were so far away.
Exactly. Couldn't see it all. Into the game, I guess the Northwest fans, they were just going crazy, hit the field, complete mob scene on the field.
Oh, yeah. I about got trampled. I got trampled down there. It was, because they got those itty-bitty little gates to get out on the field, so they did rush the field, and it was, I thought that they did a good job of controlling it at least. It wasn't too chaotic.
I'll tell you one thing, I just raised the old hand on this, and now Joe, I guess, is gone, but at Northern, man, I'll tell you, at Northern that night I was there for the Northern Page game, I was kind of surprised. They had a lot of sheriff's cars out there. They must have had, that place was well controlled as far as the crowd control, exit control, that type thing. I bet they had about 10 sheriff's vehicles with the lights on at Northern that night. They pretty well had that place staked out that night, made sure nothing was going to happen out there. I'm sure Northwest had a lot of people out there too, as far as security, a lot of security people.
Right, they had the show pros people out there, and then they had probably about 6 or 7 deputies that I saw.
At least.
But they didn't have their lights on their cars,
right.
That kind of makes a statement,
Yeah,
when you have the lights on, it's kind of like, hey, we're
you
here.
Need to be there. Get on that road and get out here.
That's right.
Don't lay around or wait around. Preview us now. Let's get out of the Northwest Northern game. Let's move ahead to this week. Give us a preview on the Ragsdale Page game this week. What do you see?
I think it's that Page is going to win. I think it'll be high scoring on the Page end.
Well, they put up a lot of points last week at Central. Yeah.
And I think that I saw Ragsdale in the opener this year, in their opener against Grimsley this year, and was kind of surprised that Jarius Drayton wasn't more involved in their offense, or didn't quite perform as much as I'd expected him to.
It might have taken a little while to get untracked. I'm not sure. It had a much better week last week. I'm sure the opposition was a little bit less stringent what Page is going to be. They're going to be tight. Page will be a tight defense. He'll have his work cut out for him, but Drayton's got to get off. He's got to get going for them to be successful.
He does. He has to. If Ragsdale is going to keep that game close, they're really going to need Drayton to step up.
And that comes back to another point, too. Drayton's going to have his game. Plus, to take some pressure off Drayton, Eric Williams has got to have a game. He's got to find Parker, got to find those receivers. He's got to open it up, too.
Right. He was 13 for 23 for 134 with a touchdown and interception against Grimsley. So I really don't think that Ragsdale, I think that if Williams can take some of the load off of Drayton, that maybe takes the run away, and Dudley has to Page has to cover the receivers more, and that
Instead
gives
of stacking the line. You got 8 guys up right in the bucket stacking that line. It's pretty tough to run through there. Yeah.
Right, and then maybe that gives Drayton a better opportunity to get more yards or find a better hole.
What kind of score, what kind of prediction are you making on this game for Page and Rags? What kind of numbers are you looking at?
I think I'm going to do 56-6.
What's that again?
56-6.
56.
Page.
Joe, good to see you. Take care. 56-6 Page. All Pirates tomorrow night.
All Pirates.
A lot of Leak and a lot of Jones.
Right. A lot of Leak and a lot of Jones.
Don't need as much Jones if you get a lot of Leak. So one of these days, Jones is going to have to be putting out. Right now, Leak is doing enough where Jones has not been forced to do quite as much.
Right, and I don't think that Jones is really going to be forced to do much until they really get into conference play.
And then they got those non-conference games, Reagan next week, and then that week after that they got East Forsyth, so Jones will have to be ready then, no doubt about that.
Right.
Well, how about this? What about a player of the year so far in Guilford County? Who you got? Plenty to choose from.
There are plenty to choose from, but I think it would be hard to argue against Thomas Hennigan.
A lot of people said the same thing.
It would be hard to. Somebody would have to do a lot of convincing, a lot of talking
So
to
if we've
convince
got a high school Heisman, it's Hennigan for the Heisman right now.
It is.
Josh?
It is. 10 touchdowns in 2 games after you come back from missing the first game of the season from an illness. That's unreal.
And you look at Hooker's got to be in that conversation somewhere in the mix.
Hooker
and then you got Leak as well. I think those are maybe your top 3 right now. And don't forget the Chavis Little guy at High Point Central, 620 yards rushing so far. He's made a statement over for himself at Central. But like you say, at the top, Hennigan, then you got Hooker just below him. Then you got Leak and maybe Jones in 4th. But right now, Hennigan, Hooker, and Leak are your top 3.
Definitely. They're the ones who have come out and done really well this year.
Unsung player of the year, I'm putting Rainey on that unsung list. I'm putting Trey Turner on there too because they've got guys around them in other schools. At the same school, the guys kind of get a little bit more of the attention right now. But watch out for those 2 guys, those 2 juniors, Jaron Rainey and also Trey Turner.
I think that Jaron Rainey might be the most underrated quarterback in Guilford County. I would go out on a limb and say that. Last year, I saw them a lot, and he did his portion of. He put in the work and played well in a lot of games that they wouldn't have won if he hadn't have played as well.
Northwest Guilford game would be a prime example right there.
Right, and
beat all those guys in that conference, except for East Forsyth, beat everybody else pretty much.
Right, and the big thing that's going to hurt them is the losing Jeremiah Brown and Jaron really not having one guy he knows he can go to, and they'll probably find somebody that he can go to. DJ Gray.
Pretty good receiver.
Pretty good receiver.
Pretty good runner too.
He is. He's been running for them.
Bryson Jumper, good runner.
Bryson Jumper, Coach Rainey, Jaron's dad, Coach Eric Rainey, told me after the game against who did they play?
Andrews.
The Andrews game. That's right. He told me that Bryson Jumper has been a defensive player for 3 years and has been begging to run the ball for 3 years, and now he's got his time to shine, and he's done really well so far this year.
A quick rundown on just give me these winners. Dudley at Hillside. Who do you like there?
I like with Hendon being there,
3-0 versus 3-0. Take a Dudley.
Dudley.
What about Grimsley and Central?
That'll be that's going to be a tight game. I think that I'm going to give the advantage to Grimsley.
Okay. What about Southeast and Northwest?
That'll also be a close game. But I give the advantage to Northwest just because their offense is so powerful and they have so many different ways to score.
How about Smith at Southern Guilford?
I think Southern Guilford wins that game.
Rags, so Page, you've got Page. Southwest at Western.
Southwest over Western.
Okay, what about Northeast at Rockingham County? Both teams 0-3.
Right, Northeast should get their first win of the year.
Northern at Williams. Northern's 0-2. Williams is 3-0.
I think Northern's going to 0-3.
Okay. How about Reedsville hop on Andrews? Last year, Andrews with Reedsville beat them 48-3. What about this year?
This year's High Point Andrews team is very different from last year. They returned one starter on offense and 7 starters on defense. I have to give the advantage to Reedsville in that game.
Probably big after what happened last year.
Right.
They want to make up for lost time and get that advantage back in their corner in a big way.
Right. That game at Southwest really showed that.
And Southwest should have been a lot worse, right? 18-0. It should have been like maybe 56-6.
It should.
Southwest scores the touchdowns that they should have scored.
Right. Yeah. There were drop balls where a couple of guys were wide open and would have gone untouched into the end zone, where Rainey put it in their hands, and for some reason that they just couldn't bring it in that night.
Well, how about some ACC talk right now at Shane's Rib Shack? Football in focus for a big Thursday. Got the big Panthers game later against Denver, but we got ACC ball as well. The 4 ACC in-state schools and East Carolina. How do you rate those top 5 this year? And there's some good matchups this weekend with these guys too. Got East Carolina, North Carolina State, Duke, Wake Forest. How do you rank them 1 through 5?
I would say, are you including Carolina in there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I would say Carolina number 1. I'd put Duke at number 2.
Okay.
Wake Forest at number 3.
UNC 1, Duke 2, Wake 3. What about State East Carolina? They're going to be 4 and 5?
State is 4 and East Carolina 5.
There it is. Mark the word of Wyatt Smith. What about this weekend? You got State and East Carolina. Who wins that one?
That's going to be a good game, but I think that State will end up beating East Carolina.
What about Wake at Duke?
I think that Duke will have a tough time, but they'll end up winning the game.
Duke will win that one. What about North Carolina, Illinois? Tough loss last week against
Yeah, they
Georgia.
did have a tough loss
but a
against
big game for
Georgia.
T.J. Logan. How about Logan last week? 253 yards total offense. I hope they keep giving him a chance to do what he did last week. Keep giving him the ball, and he'll keep making the most of his opportunities. T.J. Logan.
Yeah, I think that Carolina wins that game.
Taking the Heels win pretty good at Illinois. Elsewhere, what about the Panthers and Denver tonight? Panthers, what do you see this year? Do they go 15-1, 14-2, 13-3, 12-4, or whatever? What about the Panthers? What do they do this year? What do they do tonight?
I think there's no doubt that they'll win the NFC South. I'm not sure that they can repeat the undefeated performance that they had last year. They might end up at maybe 13-3.
13-3 would be good.
That would be a good number for them. And
Andy, you have them winning big tonight?
I think that they will do well tonight. I don't know that they'll win by more than a couple of touchdowns, but I think that they'll do really well.
What about this game on Saturday, Virginia Tech versus Tennessee at Bristol? How do you think that game's going to roll?
Wow.
160,000 people are going to be watching that game.
Right.
Largest crowd in college football history.
Wow. That's amazing.
Not too far from here. I guess, what, about an hour and a half, 2 hours away to Bristol, something like that? I guess.
Yeah, maybe about 2.5, 3, but still close. Tennessee had a really tough time with Appalachian
Last
State.
Thursday night, went to overtime, went down to the wire, and they scored a touchdown off a fumble recovery of their own in the end zone. That's crazy. It went like that.
So I'm going to give the edge to Virginia Tech just because of the tough time that they had with Appalachian.
Yeah. Yeah, overtime win for Tennessee. Tennessee's supposed to be a top 10 team. It did not look like a top 10 team.
No, they did not look like a top 10 team last week. And we were talking to Coach Rolfus after the game, and he's talking about Thomas, and he said that he had watched the the Appalachian State game the night before, and he thought that Thomas was going to fit in really well there.
He could really help those guys out.
That's what he was saying.
Good wide open offense. The ACC for Clemson, who's second, do you think, this year in the ACC?
I think I'll give it to Carolina.
Carolina to finish second. So they probably play each other again in that ACC championship game.
Right.
Clemson won, North Carolina second.
Right.
Carolina's got some work to do, but there's plenty to work with. They've got some talent down there. Just got to get more reps for Trubisky. Got used to being the number one quarterback running the show, and they do have the talent on hand. Elijah Hood can do. He's a smart kid. Hood's very cerebral, as they say, very smart kid, and once they get going, they could do something with it. You think, anyway.
Right. You hope that they would for their sake. And
who do you think is going to be the surprise team in the NFL this year? We know the Panthers did well last year. They kind of surprised some people. What about this year as a surprise team?
The surprise in the NFL. Maybe the Giants.
Okay. Could be. I got Kansas City. A lot of people think they're going to surprise some people. They played well last year. Had a good run. I think they won about maybe 7-8 games in a row, one stretch. Kansas City to be a surprise team this year.
Yeah, that sounds like a good pick, Kansas City.
Who do you think is going to give the Panthers some competition in that NFC South? Who's the competition going to come from?
Atlanta.
Atlanta compete well. Good matchups there between those two.
Yeah, it's always a good matchup when they get together.
Here's a question for you. I gave this to Joe as well. The old NFC West back in the day. Now, right now, we've got the Rams going back to L.A., so they got back in the old NFC West. You got the Rams, the 49ers, the Seahawks, and the Cardinals. There's the Cardinals. Who was in the old NFC West back in the old days? Back when the Rams were before. Do you remember the old NFC West?
I don't remember the NFC West.
Let's throw it out there for you. You had the Rams, the 49ers. They're still there today.
Right.
Plus, crazy enough, you had the Falcons and the Saints back in the old days.
Oh, wow.
Back in the day, they were in that West. They sure were. Falcons kind of came in late in the league, so when a team came in late, they stuck you somewhere. You used to get stuck in that. Like, remember the Braves were in the West in baseball?
Right.
The Dodgers? Same thing with the Falcons. They were in the West back in the day, too.
Wow.
And the Saints as well. I'd remembered the Falcons. It was hard to remember the Saints. Joe remembered those. It was hard to remember, but the Saints were out there, too.
Wow.
Because they came in the league later also as well.
Wow.
But that was back in the day, and that was back when the Rams had guys like Roman Gabriel, George Allen was the coach, and I guess now the Rams are going home again.
Yeah, I guess they are. St. Louis probably devastated, but they just didn't. I guess they just weren't making any money out there, and you've got to go where the market is and where the money is.
Speaking about making the money, you got guys like David Amerson with the Raiders making $40 million over 10 years, and guys like Keenan Allen with the Chargers making $40 million over 10 years. Both those guys out of Greensboro played against each other in high school. Northern versus Dudley. Over at Northern played each of both places. Both those guys making $40 million a year. Allen and Amerson both. It's amazing, isn't it?
That is just awesome for Guilford County athletes, and I think it's great that you can sit back and see these guys as a high school player, or even a middle school player, or a young person growing up in Guilford County, and say, look at all these guys that are going to Division I colleges and that are going to the NFL and being successful.
Making good money,
making good money, being successful. I think that's really good for the athletes in Guilford County and the young people of Guilford County as well, to have people like that to look up to and aspire to.
And Joe had mentioned something about that matchup on Saturday at Bristol with Tennessee versus Virginia Tech. And at Tennessee, you got Emmanuel Mosley who played at Dudley. And at Virginia Tech, you got Mook Reynolds. Jerron, used to be Jerron in high school, J-A-R-O, I don't remember his name, Jerron. Mook Reynolds, he was at Northern Guilford. Both those two guys will not be going against you physically during the game. They're both defensive players, but those guys on opposite teams meeting a huge game Saturday in the biggest game in college football history. Those two guys get together out of Guilford County. How strange is that? Plus, you got a guy like Hendon Hooker will be checking in next year, Virginia Tech.
Right. That'll be great. That's awesome that you've got those guys. You know, we see the talent in Guilford County, and we see all the guys on a regular basis, the big names, and I don't know that a lot of people, obviously there's a bunch of colleges that know just because of their recruiting process, but it would be interesting to see how many people know that these people, that this person,
playing
came
on Saturdays,
from,
playing on Sundays.
Playing on Saturdays and then playing on Sundays came out of Guilford County.
Make sure to go check up on those guys, see how they're doing numbers-wise, which we always see season starts. Sometimes you kind of get busy, can't keep up with them as much as you want to. But that T.J. Logan, 253 yards, total yards last Saturday, it just makes me hope that they'll keep him in the mix down there. They won't forget about him. Once Elijah Hood starts getting his numbers, I hope they keep T.J. in that mix. Because that was a great touchdown. I think 95 yards in the touchdown return, about a 30-some yard run from scrimmage for a TD.
Right. I think it was 95 yards for the return. I think he's going to have a really good year. And have you heard anything about C.J. Freeman?
I checked on him last week. They had the game, I think it was South Carolina Vanderbilt. South Carolina won a game. C.J. did not get any carries. I'm not sure if he's going to be redshirted. He is on the roster as a freshman running back, though.
Okay.
Caleb C.J. Freeman is on there. He is on the roster, sure is. And James Summers had, I think, 95 yards rushing, 15 carries last week for East Carolina. As a quarterback, I think he was 1 for 1. So he got involved in that East Carolina win, as they picked up a 52-7 win over Western Carolina. They got NC State. It's going to be a different story Saturday. You got Reggie Gillespie. I think Reggie had 25 yards, maybe 5 or 6 carries for State last week, and that win over William & Mary last Thursday night. Got a lot of local guys involved in these games. Big time local guys. Running backs, quarterbacks, all kinds of position players, everybody. Chris Register's number 2 defensive end on the depth chart for Clemson. Didn't play in last week's game, but Register's on that depth chart for Clemson, number 2 defensive end. Pretty good spot there, too.
Right.
Yeah. So tomorrow night you'll be at the Page-Ragsdale game, and kind of again give us a little brief preview on that as we begin to wind up, get ready for our Dudley guys checking in tonight. Give us a little brief update, preview of that Page game again tomorrow.
The Page will be playing over at Marion Kirby at 7:30. Page taking on Ragsdale. It'll be battle between.
There was a time, believe it or not, I'm just going to jump in because some of the history involved in this series. There was a time up to about maybe 3 or 4 years ago when Coach Gillespie had never beaten Ragsdale. Couldn't beat Tommy Norwood. Just happened to be one of those deals. Just wouldn't happen. Just didn't take place.
Wow.
Finally knocked them off. I don't think they've lost since then. But even when Coach Gillespie was at Trinity for a long time, he had that stumbling block, had that monkey on the back. The games against Ragsdale when he's at Trinity. And then he got the Page, same story. But finally, when they finally emerged and knocked off Rags, I think Page has won all the games since then. It was crazy for a few years. Once they got that knocked out, smooth sailing for the Pirates since then.
Did they tear the monkey up when they finally beat him like Northwest
That's what I heard
did?
they did, yeah. The monkey out the back.
The monkey was destroyed.
How big was the monkey?
The monkey was, I mean, it was a stuffed monkey. It was probably about that big.
Who led that monkey destruction? The football players, the cheerleaders?
One of the coaches actually had it. I didn't catch who it was at first. It looked like John Hughes, but then I don't think it was him.
Right. Now there's a coach at East Forsyth. You go some East Forsyth games, right?
Right.
There's a coach. I think he used to coach at Northwest. It might be Coach Beal, maybe not. I'm just thinking maybe. I was at the Eastern at the 707 over at Guilford College this year. East Forsyth was over there. You gotta look in the mirror sometimes yourself and go look at that coach from East Forsyth. I would say Wyatt Smith, that coach, separated at birth completely. East Forsyth coach Wyatt Smith, same guy.
All right.
Go check him out sometime.
All right, I will.
You see that guy, you say, hey, he was right. He was right. I'm going to let you
Well,
get
you usually are right, so.
Close enough. Let's get our Dudley guys ready to check in next.